Ladies and gentlemen, gather round the digital campfire, because we're about to embark on a wild, unhinged, and gloriously chaotic journey.
Hakeem Jeffries' performance so far?
Like, you mean as the minority leader just generally the past couple of years, or since Trump's gotten into office?
Since Trump, since Trump's coming.
Pretty mediocre. Pretty mediocre.
All right. That's good.
I mean, it's been too weak. I don't like how he's not criticized like Eric Adams.
Yeah.
I think that's insane. I know he's like taking the position of, oh, we have to wait and see if the charges are dismissed. I think.
Hold on, wait. I'm so sorry. I need to pay
what I've seen through my experience. You know.
Yeah, of course, man. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anybody else want to hop in here?
Yeah, who wants to debate me? Harry, you go.
Harry, go ahead. Hassan,
what do I have to say, man?
One time on stream. Well, you referenced.
Kelly was 100% right to warn Destiny about Jizdical. He was absolutely ready to shit on Destiny after the AEG stalker. She was just biding his time. Sure, but Kelly's also the same way. She's incredibly opportunistic.
Harry is like the DNC shill, and then you referenced me as the car guy. So at least Harry gets a name.
Hassan, do you still think I'm a shill?
I don't know. I haven't seen any of your new stuff, so I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you'd see Harry as a shill. Yeah.
Let me ask you. No. This is important. What do you think about Hakeem Jeffries' performance so far?
Like, you mean as the minority leader just generally the past couple of years, or since Trump's gotten into office?
Since Trump, since Trump's coming.
Pretty mediocre. Pretty mediocre.
All right. That's good.
I mean, it's been too weak. I don't like how he's not criticized like Eric Adams.
Yeah.
I think that's insane. I know he's like taking.
Wait, is that true? Has Hakeem Jeffries not criticized Eric Adams? I don't keep up with the history of all of that as much, so that could be true. Hakeem Jeffries, Eric Adams. Jeffrey says Eric Adams should not resign. That was 4 months ago.
On the Mayor Adams front first, do you think he should resign?
No, my view is that Mayor Adams, like every other New Yorker and every other American, is entitled to the presumption of innocence and entitled to a trial by a jury of his peers who will ultimately determine his fate within the legal system. At the same time, it's important for Mayor Adams to articulate to New Yorkers in a compelling way a plan and a path forward to ensure that the city is continuing to function and run in a manner that meets the needs of everyday New Yorkers and in a manner that New York City, which we believe is the greatest city in the world, deserves.
If Eric Adams would have stepped down, what does the process look like for a new mayor coming into place? Would it be like a special election, or
the position of, oh, we have to wait and see if the charges are dismissed? I think that's I don't think he's been hard enough on Trump. I really don't like how like Jerry Connolly is leading the Judiciary Committee and not AOC. I think we've been making like some very simple mistakes. So
yeah, okay, that's good. That's
Hassan, it is possible to be nuanced. You know, like the moderate Democrats are too moderate, and the progressive Democrats are too progressive, and you could just be somewhere in the middle.
I have a question too.
What's up?
Okay. And this is because I feel like I've been getting more radical in my views on this topic. But the main critique that I've seen from your supporters, and I think even you called me way too libbed out for this when you were reacting to my Jubilee episode.
I think it was the immigration stuff. Maybe.
Immigration policy. Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. So in accordance with the stance that I either shared on the Jubilee episode, or I could just kind of reiterate my thoughts on immigration now. I'd love for you to tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, first, we'll start with border policy. So border policy, what I want in my best version of the world is as many ports of entry that operate as efficiently and as quickly.
Wait, that was a fair answer from Hakeem. He can't just assume guilt and denounce him as the position Hakeem is in. Yes. However, I don't want to generalize these guys, the younger people here, because I don't know their positions. But one of the problems, and you have to remember this, is people on, it's so annoying. People on the far left don't really want political power. They want to just be able to, I guess I'm kind of borrowing a lot from that ContraPoints quote. They just want to critique power. That's it. So all of their criticisms are aimed towards critiquing power and making other people critique power. They don't really understand or care about maybe politics. So politics can be complicated. You have public positions, you've got private positions, you've got things you push for privately while you speak about them slightly differently publicly. So you're correct in that, like, Hakeem Jeffries can't just start on Eric Adams, the Democrat mayor of New York City. For obvious reasons, that would be bad. Now, behind the scenes, he could work to do something with him, whether that means working on him to step down or whatever, but it would be silly to cause that much division in the party. That's true. But people on the far left are never going to think about the politics part of it. They just want to critique power and shit on it for whatever reason. Because remember, they don't even want their own people to be politically effective. Remember that whole call the vote or force the vote movement where they were like, AOC and everyone else needs to force people to vote on Medicare for all. That way, when the American people see who votes no, they'll vote all of them out. That was a delusional plan that was always stupid, but they just wanted to do it so they could critique power and have a list of names of people to shut. They didn't, that wasn't going anywhere policy-wise. If anything, it would have hurt it. Like, yeah.
Donald Trump is back in the White House, strutting around like a peacock who just discovered spray tan. His administration, a clown car of loyalists, grifters, and people who look like they were rejected from a Mad Men audition for being too unhinged. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party, the supposed guardians of democracy, are out here acting like they've been lobotomized by a PowerPoint presentation titled How to Be Moderately Inoffensive. Leading this parade of mediocrity is Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, a man whose leadership style is so cautious it could be bottled and sold as Essence of Beige. Destiny, streaming from his digital pulpit, is not impressed. He's calling Jeffries' performance pretty mediocre. And that's the kindest thing he's got to say. It's like Destiny's watching a boxing match where one fighter's throwing haymakers and the other's just holding up a pillow and whispering, "Please don't hurt me." Now, let's be real. The Democrats have a tough job. Opposing Trump is like trying to wrestle a greased pig while blindfolded and wearing flip-flops. The guy's a master of chaos, a one-man wrecking ball who turns every policy debate into a reality TV shouting match. But the Dems, they're out here playing chess when Trump's playing hungry hippos. Destiny's frustration is palpable, and it's not just about Jeffries. It's about the entire Democratic establishment's refusal to fight fire with fire, even fight fire with a squirt gun. They're so obsessed with civility and bipartisanship that they've forgotten how to throw a punch. It's like watching a vegan try to wrestle a T-Rex with a kale smoothie and a dream. Take Jeffries' handling of Eric Adams, the embattled New York City mayor who's been indicted on charges that make him sound like he's auditioning for a role in Goodfellas. Jeffries' response, a masterclass in fence-sitting. He's out here talking about presumption of innocence and due process, which sure sounds reasonable until you realize it's also the political equivalent of shrugging and saying, "Hey, let's see how this plays out." Destiny's not having it. He wants Jeffries to go for the jugular, to call out Adams' corruption with the ferocity of a prosecutor in a John Grisham novel. Instead, Jeffries is tiptoeing around the issue like he's trying not to wake a sleeping baby. It's the kind of caution that makes you want to scream, "Grow a spine, man! This isn't a yoga retreat, it's a political cage match." But wait, it gets worse. Destiny's not just mad about Jeffries' soft touch with Adams. He's livid about the Democratic leadership's baffling decision to keep Jerry Connolly, a guy whose name sounds like he should be selling used cars in a strip mall, leading the Judiciary Committee instead of handing the reins to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the progressive firebrand who's basically the human equivalent of a Molotov cocktail. AOC's the kind of politician who can rally a crowd, dunk on Republicans, and make a viral TikTok all before breakfast. So why is she being sidelined for Connolly, a guy who looks like he's been chairing the same committee since the Nixon administration? Destiny's stream is practically vibrating with outrage over this. He's out here arguing that AOC would bring the kind of energy and audacity the Dems desperately need to counter Trump's relentless assault on democratic norms. Instead, they're sticking with Connolly, a safe, moderate choice who's about as inspiring as a stale bagel. It's like the Democrats are preparing for a street fight by sending in a guy armed with a clipboard and a polite cough. Destiny's point is clear. The Dems are so terrified of rocking the boat that they're willing to let Trump capsize the whole ship. This AOC snub is a microcosm of the Democrats' broader problem. They're allergic to boldness. They're so afraid of alienating swing voters or upsetting their corporate donors that they've neutered their own progressive wing, the one part of the party that actually knows how to fight. AOC, Bernie Sanders, the squad, they're the Democrats' secret weapons, the ones who can galvanize young voters, energize the base, and call out Trump's nonsense with the kind of clarity that cuts through the noise. But instead of unleashing them, the Democratic establishment keeps them on a leash, like they're prized poodles at a dog show instead of attack dogs ready to take down a tyrant. Now, let's pivot to Destiny's broader critique of the Democratic Party's internal dynamics, because this is where things get juicy. On stream, he's not just roasting Jeffries and Connolly. He's taking aim at the far left, the progressive purists who'd rather burn the house down than compromise on a single plank of their platform. Destiny's got a bone to pick with these folks, and it's not a small one, it's a T-Rex femur of frustration. He's arguing that the far left's obsession with critiquing power over actually wielding it is a recipe for disaster. It's like they're showing up to a gunfight with a megaphone and a manifesto, shouting about systemic injustice while Trump's out here loading the cannons. Destiny's point is sharp enough to draw blood. The far left doesn't want political power, they want moral superiority. They're more interested in dunking on establishment Dems than actually winning elections. Remember the Force the Vote movement, that glorious fever dream where progressives thought they could strong-arm Congress into voting on Medicare for all, expose the corporate shills, and magically transform the political landscape? Destiny calls it delusional, and he's not wrong. It was like trying to fix a broken spaceship by yelling at the astronauts instead of, actually repairing the engine. The far left's plan was less a strategy and more a performance piece, a way to flex their ideological purity while achieving exactly nothing. But here's the twist. Destiny's not just mad at the far left, he's mad at the moderates, too. The Democratic Party, in his view, is a house divided against itself, a dysfunctional family where the moderates are too spineless and the progressives are too reckless. The moderates, like Jeffries and Connolly, are so obsessed with pragmatism that they've forgotten how to inspire. The progressives, meanwhile, are so focused on revolution that they've forgotten how to govern. It's like the Dems are trying to fight Trump with one hand tied behind their back, and the other hand busy writing think pieces about the soul of the party. So why does all this matter? Because the stakes couldn't be higher. Trump's not just a politician, he's a force of nature, a Category 5 hurricane of narcissism, lies, and authoritarian ambition. His return to power in 2025 isn't just a political loss for the Democrats, it's an existential threat to democracy itself. The guy's out here promising to pardon January 6th rioters, gut the civil service, and turn the Justice Department into his personal revenge squad. And the Democrats' response? A collective shrug, a few strongly worded press releases, and a strategy that seems to boil down to hope for the best. But the Dems are so paralyzed by their own internal divisions and their fear of alienating voters that they're letting Trump run circles around them. It's like watching a team show up to the Super Bowl with a playbook written in crayon and a quarterback who's more concerned with not offending the refs than scoring touchdowns. So where does this leave us? What does Destiny's roast of the Democratic establishment tell us about the state of liberalism, the fight against Trump, and the future of democracy? Buckle up, because we're about to get reflective, metaphorical, and just a little bit unhinged. First off, Destiny's critique is a mirror held up to the Democratic Party's soul, or what's left of it after years of compromise, caution, and corporate cash. The Dems are like a band that used to play sold-out arenas, but now can't fill a coffee shop because they've forgotten how to write a hit. They've got the talent, the platform, and the fan base, but they're too busy arguing over the setlist to actually perform. Destiny's not just roasting them. He's begging them to remember who they are, to rediscover the fire that once made them a movement instead of a machine. But it's not just about the Democrats. Destiny's stream is a broader commentary on the state of liberalism in the age of Trump. Liberalism, at its core, is about reason, progress, and the belief that we can build a better world through collective action. But when your standard-bearers are too timid to fight, too divided to unite, and too obsessed with optics to lead, that vision starts to feel like a pipe dream. Destiny's frustration is the frustration of every liberal who's watched the past decade unfold with a growing sense of dread. The knowledge that the ideals we hold dear are under siege, and the people tasked with defending them are bringing a knife to a gunfight. The AOC snub, the Adams waffling, the far left's purity tests, they're all symptoms of a deeper disease, the Democrats' inability to adapt to a world where the rules have changed. Trump doesn't play by the old playbook. He's out here rewriting the game in real time, turning politics into a reality show where the loudest liar wins. The Democrats, meanwhile, are still trying to win debates with facts and civility, like they're competing in a high school forensics tournament instead of a cage match for the soul of the nation.